And then while we're on the back here, again, another similarity that these phones have is in terms of memory. Both ship with a 2 gig card. You can see the slot here, so it's not necessary to remove the battery for either phone in order to get to the card. It ships with a 2 gig card, and they both support up to 32 gigs of external memory with a separate card. And then internally, both phones have 2 gigs of internal memory, though some of that is taken up by pre-installed apps that you can't uninstall. So on the memory front, exactly the same, ships with that 2 gig card. Here we have the battery. Now the myTouch Q ships with a 1520 milliamp hour battery, and the myTouch ships with a 1540 milliamp hour battery. So, slight differences there. Battery life for both devices were, again, nearly identical, even though, just kind of slight difference in the numbers there. They're both 4G devices, so battery life isn't spectacular, especially considering this small battery, a 1540, 1520, that's a small battery for an Android device, especially for an Android device that has 4G capabilities. They're both HSPA Plus phones, and so I was able to get through a 12-hour day, basically a work shift of starting in the morning and then all the way into the evening with, normal use of web browsing, social networking, having certain notifications running in the background for email and things like that. I was able to get through a full 12-hour day. I definitely had to charge both of them every night. And then, of course, battery life is going to vary depending on your usage habits, but you probably will, again, have to charge them every night. And then you may want to carry around a charger, just to be safe. But, neither one had, better battery life compared to the other one. They're both identical, actually, in terms of battery performance. Now, I mentioned that they're both 4G devices. And in this respect, I actually got different speeds for each device. If we go over to the speed test app, they both use T-Mobile's HSPA Plus network, their 14.4 megabits per second HSPA Plus network. But as you can see, the results are slightly different. On the myTouch Q, they were, pretty inconsistent for one thing, but they're also slower. You can see I got 1.5. I got a high of 3, and the rest was like 1 or 2, and then you see I have a low of not even 1 megabit per second. Whereas on the myTouch, definitely faster. I had a high of 4, and in other tests that I've done with the myTouch, I even got a high of 5 megabits per second. And then even then, my average was 2 to 3 megabits per second. So it's a slight difference, but this is kind of one of those weird things. Even though they're both pretty much identical, I still got faster speeds with the myTouch. Now, I don't know if that's an indication that they use different wireless radios for each device. I highly doubt that. I think it's probably just proof that you're going to get different speeds, even if it's, pretty much exactly the same device. I tested these in the same parts of the Dallas area, but as you can see, I got different speed test results. So that's probably going to be the same. That same is true for you. Now let's go back over and we'll do a couple of benchmark tests. Now both phones ship with a 1 gigahertz Qualcomm Snapdragon S2 processor. They both have 512 megabytes of RAM. So performance was actually pretty much the same on each device. I noticed a little bit more lag with the myTouch Q. There were more times when it would hang, when it would actually freeze and I had to take the battery out. I had more problems with that on the myTouch Q as opposed to the myTouch. Now, the myTouch, there was definitely some lag whenever I had multiple applications running or, web browsing. I definitely noticed lag, on both devices. But I just noticed more of it on the myTouch Q. But if we let this test run, you're going to notice that they get pretty much identical results for this benchmark test. So we'll let this run and I'll show you the results. Okay, so here we have the results. We have a 1,178 on the myTouch Q, 1,326 on the myTouch. So, slightly different, but, in the grand scheme of things, nearly identical. And, web browsing is also going to be pretty much the same on each device. Again, I'll go to the web browser. One more note about data. They do both support mobile hotspots for up to 8 8 connections, 8 devices. Both of them worked great. I had no problems with that, but that's a feature that both of them have. So we'll go over to phonedog.com. And again, this is one area where they're both going to be about equal in terms of performance. Okay, so here we have PhoneDog loaded up on both devices, and again, this is where having that larger display is really going to come in handy, because as you can see, you're able to see a lot more content on the myTouch as opposed to the myTouch Q, whereas here it kind of stops around dog, pound, galaxy tab, unboxing, and then here we can see 3 more articles below that. Actually 4 more articles. I know how to count. So you can see a lot more content with a larger display, and then again, being an AMOLED display, the graphics show up so much better, and then having a higher resolution just makes it that much better. So that larger AMOLED display is so much better on the myTouch as opposed to the myTouch Q, and then if we show pinch to zoom, neither one is really spectacular. That 1 GHz processor just really struggles. Of course, we have flash content loaded on this page, but as you can see, it's decent, you know, but just a little unresponsive. And then we're going to have the same problems on the myTouch Q with flash content loaded. So performs a little bit better on the myTouch Q, but again, you know, in overall performance, from my experience after testing out both devices, web browsing is really just about the same on both phones. But still, you know, nice to have the larger display with the myTouch. So that's just about it with the myTouch Q and the myTouch. It was kind of a short dogfight, but really, you know, there's only a few major differences between the two. Performance is basically the same on both devices. If you're wondering which one performs the best, they're both nearly identical because they both have the same processor, same amount of RAM, and then the same UI on top of that. So performance is exactly the same. Again, you know, Android, same UI, same version of Android. If I had to recommend one, I would say the myTouch over the myTouch Q. Even though performance is exactly the same and the myTouch had its share of lag, still just the experience of using it was much more enjoyable just because the features are much better on the myTouch. So there it is, myTouch Q versus myTouch. You guys can take a look and decide for yourselves, but those are the major differences. And then, you know, basically the only thing the myTouch Q has going for it over the myTouch is that physical keyboard. Other than that, the myTouch really shines in every other area. So thanks guys for watching this dogfight. If you have any other questions, if there's something that I missed, if there's another detail you wanted to see, you can send me a message on Twitter. My screen name is phonedog_Sydney, or leave a comment here. I'll try to answer them if I can. Keep it on phonedog.com for more news, updates, and reviews. Watch the video reviews of these phones if you want a more in-depth look at them, as well as the written reviews. Thanks guys for watching. I'm Sydney from phonedog.com, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.